At the start of every school year, I have a video clip that I show to all the students. In fact, I've started showing it to the faculty in our first faculty meeting too.
I urge all of you today, especially those who are students, to act, to enter the lists of public service. The educated citizen has an obligation to serve the public. He may be a precinct worker or president. He may give his talents at the courthouse, the state house, the White House. He may be a civil servant or a senator, a candidate or a campaign worker, a winner or a loser. But he must be a participant and not a spectator.
The students after that clip will come to me sometimes with tears in their eyes and say, I just didn't know, or I'm so glad you did that. Now I know why we're at the Kennedy School.
We're here at the IOP as a memorial to President Kennedy. And one of the things President Kennedy said, one of my favorite lines, is where he talked about the importance of participating and the responsibility that the educated citizen have to be a participant in this government, to make democracy work.
Kennedy had a strong appeal to young people, and his whole ideal of public service, of government and politics. He brought young men and women into Washington as the FDR had done 20 years before.
Merely establishing a library and museum in Franklin Roosevelt's tradition would not be sufficient.
There was no model for an institute of politics, a place that would try to excite people about elective politics and understand everything about elective politics. Initially, this was not very well received by most of Harvard. Most people said if we needed an institute of politics, we would already have one. Harvard's been successful for more than 300 years, so, what do we need something that we don't have for? Besides politics, what does that have to do on campus? It's a little dangerous.
You had people being drafted, and technically what it was not just the draft. Obviously there was a draft then, but a decision not to honor student deferments automatically. We got to the fall, that was a big issue, which is when McNamara was coming.
Having McNamara as the first in a series, I asked the dean of Harvard College whether I should expect trouble. And the dean, with a complacency that really tells much about the old Harvard, said, "No, there'll be no trouble. Harvard men do not riot." Well, he was wrong. So he got out of the car and engaged in an exchange with the students. He got off somehow, I've forgotten just how, and was spirited away through the steam tunnels. And his guide was my assistant, Barney Frank. When we got into the little yellow house, which was in the spring of '67, it proved to be the best strategic decision I ever made, because it was an ideal location for undergraduates. It was right smack in the middle of their undergraduate houses.
And I remember spending many afternoons there visiting with students and fellows. Some were former members of Congress, others had been administration officials, Republicans and Democrats, finding out from them what politics was really like from the inside.
In the early 70s, you couldn't help but be political. Everybody was political. You'd get tear gassed on the way to class. It was a crazy time at Harvard. The Vietnam protests were in full swing. Kent State.
We wanted to deal with current political problems and current policy problems and shed light on them and excite people about them.
One of the things that happens in most of our education institutions is that people spend lots of time in classrooms and reading books and listening to lectures. But there's another way in which we learn many valuable things, and that is through interacting with other people. Not simply those who agree with us or whose views are very similar to ours, but learn from those who have different priorities, different perspectives, and different points of view.
The spirit of civil discourse, and that's incredibly important in public life. I think the best leaders, like John Kennedy, knew when to stand and fight on principle and when to reach out and find common ground. And that's really politics and leadership at its best.
My experiences here as an undergraduate at Harvard with roommates and with friends, with a college tutor like Alan Keyes, with a housemate like Grover Norquist, with my roommate who was president of the Harvard Republican Club, tested me, prepared me to then be assistant to President Bill Clinton. Very different perspectives, very different people. But that perspective is unique to Harvard.
One important lesson that I think I got from the IOP and from working with Ron Brown was not to shy away from the hard issues in life, the thorny issues. I really walked away wanting to grapple with the issues that concern us all, but are the most intractable in some ways. And for me, that led to a career looking at civil rights and criminal justice.
What I found was the IOP provided just a constant source of fuel to the fire, and because there are so many opportunities at the IOP, so many ways to get involved.
Whether it's through our resident fellows or our visiting fellows, the people who come in from government service, from elected office, who lead study groups, or whether it's in the forum.
And it is the exciting place, not just for the Kennedy School, it's central to Kennedy School, not just for Harvard, not even just for Cambridge and Boston. It's a world-class institution.
And one of the things that we know is that young people who have met an elected official are about twice as likely to get engaged in political activities as those who haven't. I think that's what we do better than anything else.